Chapter 4105. It's not easy for me to see someone here. If you're not in a hurry to leave, why don't you stay here and chat with me? I'm simply too bored. After Bailey Hongzhuang had stepped in to save her, the white dragon had let down its guard against Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Since she could not be eaten, she could at least chat with her to relieve her boredom. After they left, she didn't know when the next time she would meet people would be. Seeing the white dragon's lonely expression, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart softened. This fellow had been alone for so many years. It had not been easy. This was also because the dragon clan had a long lifespan and were patient. If it were a human, they would probably go crazy from waiting for such a long time. Master, let's stay here and accompany her for a while. Xiaobai spoke slowly. Putting aside her previous dissatisfaction with the white dragon's attitude, everything else was pretty good. The white dragon nodded as well. Master, why don't you help think of a way to break this restriction? I think that since the master of the ruins had specially instructed you to come here, he must have his reasons. Perhaps you're the person that the white dragon has been waiting for. Impossible. This restriction cannot be broken by someone at the Starlight Realm. The white dragon immediately denied. Xiaohei raised her brows. White dragon, you're more powerful. Why don't you try to break this restriction? The white dragon shook her head. I've already tried. I can't break this restriction by myself. It can only be broken by someone else. Don't underestimate my master. She's very powerful. Otherwise, we and the Beast King would not be contracted beasts of my master. The white dragon had not thought much of it first, but after hearing Xiaohei's words, her expression changed. Indeed, the Beast King had always been arrogant. It was the king of the demonic beasts. Logically speaking, it would not care about humans. Who would have thought that it would become a human's contracted beast? Just this point alone was enough to make the white dragon feel incredulous. Although she could not recall the origins of the black and white light spirits, she had the impression that they were very powerful demonic beasts. They would not be easily subdued by human cultivators. For Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to do this, she indeed had some ability. If you can really take me out of here, that would be great. Bai Long shrugged. She had been trapped here for too many years. Now, what she wanted most was to leave this place. If it continued to stay like this, it would soon forget what the outside world was like. She even felt that perhaps she would never be able to wait for the person who could take her away to leave. Bailey Hongzhuang knew that Bai Long wanted to leave this place. She nodded and said, I'll try. Let's see if I can get you out of here. Where's the restriction? Right there. Immediately, Bailey Hongzhuang began to study the restriction, hoping that she could find a way to break it. After Li Buoyou and the others left the ruins, they headed in the direction of the Red Moon sect. During the process, they did not even bother to say goodbye to Wan Yanling and Bai Yingtian. Bai Yingtian and Wan Yanling didn't care about this at all. Li Buoyou had really suffered a double loss this time. After this, they would probably never see each other again. Chapter 4106. Li Buoyou and the others didn't return to the ruins immediately. They walked for a while before stopping. Senior brother, they should have gone far. They won't suspect us anymore. Qian Feilong looked around and said. Li Buoyou's eyes were deep. Wan Yanling is a very cautious person. We should be more careful. Now, he only had one chance to take revenge. If he didn't succeed, it would be very difficult to take revenge in the future. Now that he was a cripple, there was no point in living. He might as well take this opportunity to take revenge for his brother. At least he would have the face to face Li Yunyu when he went to the underworld. That's usually the case. This time, none of us got the inheritance. Plus, something like this happened. I'm afraid he won't think of this. Qian Feilong thought clearly. If it was in the past, Wan Yanling would be very afraid of them. But now, Li Buoyou had become a cripple. Such a Li Buoyou was no threat to Wan Yanling at all. He also didn't think that Li Buoyou, who had become like this, would have the mind to take revenge on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Senior brother Qian is right. They won't follow us anymore. Cheng Jianqing also said. They had walked for hundreds of miles and didn't feel any aura following them. So, they could basically rule out this possibility. Li Buoyou thought for a moment and nodded. Okay, let's go back. This time, I really have to thank everyone. I'm really grateful that you're still willing to help me at this time. Li Buyo looked at the people around him. He couldn't help them anymore, but they were still willing to help him. This was also because of their past friendship. Senior brother, you've always taken care of us. This time, we didn't want to see it happen. But since it has happened, we can only do our best to help you. But don't worry, we'll definitely do it. Qian Feilong said. Everyone nodded. Li Buyo had been their leader for so long. Naturally, he had feelings for them. For this matter, everyone must do it cleanly. After you go, try not to let a single person go. That Bewitching has obtained the inheritance of the dark force and may become extremely powerful in the future. Therefore, our best option is to capture Bailey Hongzhuang and the others in one fell swoop. This way, even if Bewitching wants to seek revenge in the future, he won't know who did it. Li Buyo's eyes flashed with a sinister and cold light. Even if he became a cripple, he must bury Bailey Hongzhuang and the others with him. At the very least, this would make him feel better. Mo Yunjue and the others had been waiting in the Great Hall. On one hand, they did not know when Bewitching would finish accepting the inheritance. On the other hand, they did not know when Bailey Hongzhuang would come out. Therefore, the only thing they could do now was to wait. However, just as they were waiting, the sound of footsteps suddenly entered their ears. Noticing the footsteps, everyone could not help but look at each other. Their eyes flashed with a trace of suspicion. Chapter 4107. Mo Yunjue and the rest looked at each other. It was unbelievable that a team would suddenly appear at such a time. Judging from the footsteps, there are quite a number of people here. Xiren's face darkened. I have a feeling that they are not friendly. Mo Yunjue nodded. Indeed. Now that the legacy has ended, the other party has suddenly returned. They might be from Crimson Moon's sect. His dark eyes shone with a solemn light. Although it was just a guess, Mo Yunjue was certain. That was because, at such a time, other than the people from Crimson Moon's sect, there was no reason for the others to continue to come here. Could it be that Li Buyo is not satisfied and has come to take revenge on us? Shangwan Yingying suddenly opened her eyes wide. Although she had always wanted to kill Li Buyo personally, she knew that Crimson Moon's sex team was very powerful. Now that Wan Yinling and the rest were not around, Crimson Moon's sex team had more people than theirs. If they really did return, then this matter would be really troublesome. Everyone looked at each other, but their hearts could not help but sink. Very quickly, Li Buyo's team appeared in the main hall in a grandiose manner. When he saw that Mo Yunjue and the rest were still there, Li Buyo could not help but smile proudly. Li Buyo, why did you come back? Ren Ziheng looked at Li Buyo coldly. He felt that Li Buyo was really a scourge. Why did I come back? Li Buyo chuckled. Naturally, I came back to take your lives. With Li Buyo's words, everyone's faces suddenly changed. Even though they had already guessed this, their hearts still couldn't help but sink when they saw Li Buyo's stance. However, after Li Buyo sized up Mo Yunjue and the rest, he realized that Bailey Hongzhuang was not in the team. He could not help but frown and said, "Where is Bailey Hongzhuang?" "I'm not telling you," Shangwan Yingying said coldly. "Not telling me?" Li Buyo snorted. "When you're about to die, I'd like to see what you'll tell me." In the next moment, Li Buyo directly shot a glance at Qian Feilong and the others by his side and said, "Don't leave a single one alive. Kill them." Qian Feilong and the others immediately drew their weapons and stared at Mo Yunjue and the others. Clearly, they had locked onto their opponents. Mo Yunjue's group of 7 looked at each other. Originally, Li Buyo's team had more than 20 people. Even though a few of them had died, there were still 18 people left. Excluding Li Buyo, each of them had to deal with 2 people. Moreover, the other party was not a simple team. They were the strongest team in the Crimson Moon sect. Earlier, when they were fighting with Skeleton, they already had an understanding of their opponent's strength. The Crimson Moon sect had a total of 5 cultivators at the Astral Radiance realm and above. On the other hand, their team only had Mo Yunjue. Aside from the Astral Realm cultivators, most of them were either at the 8th or 9th level of the Purple Realm. In comparison, the strength of their team was too weak. If we fight them head-on, we're no match for them at all. Xiron's face darkened. He did not expect Li Boyo to be so despicable. Previously, they pretended to leave in order to deceive Wan Yinling and the others. They purposely waited until the other party left before returning. Chapter 4108. Indeed, Run Ziheng nodded. With such a huge disparity in strength, they were practically doomed. The only thing we could do now is to run. Even though the situation before them was extremely grim, Mo Yunjue was still very calm. We'll split up and try our best to scatter their team. At least this way, we'll have some chance of survival. They knew very well that if they faced the enemy head-on with their current strength, they would definitely be wiped out. On the other hand, if they split up and fled, at least there would be some hope of leaving alive. That's the only thing we could do now. Xiron's eyes were malicious and ruthless. I really can't take this lying down. That's a good idea. As long as we run out, they won't be guarding here. I hope they won't find Hong Zhuang. Shangguan Yingying's expression was complicated. It would be very difficult for them to survive this time. Now that Bailey Hong Zhuang wasn't here, she could only hope that Bailey Hong Zhuang would be safe. Mo Yunjue and the others looked solemn. Bailey Hong Zhuang was different from Di Beichen. Di Beichen had received the inheritance and wouldn't be done for a while. However, Bailey Hong Zhuang could come out at any time. Therefore, they could only pray that Bailey Hong Zhuang would be safe. You don't have to think of a way. Today, all of you will die. Li Boyo looked coldly at Mo Yunjue and the others in front of him. He didn't mind giving them some time. After all, they would all go to see the King of Hell today. Li Boyo, you'll die a horrible death. Shangguan Yingying cursed. That's none of your business. Anyway, you'll all die first. Li Boyo waved his hand and said, kill them all. Remember to ask them about Bailey Hong Zhuang's whereabouts. In this entire team, the ones he wanted to kill the most were Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen. However, Di Beichen had received the inheritance of the Dark Force. It would be very difficult to deal with him in the future, so he decided not to think about it. He didn't expect that Bailey Hong Zhuang wasn't here at the moment. This was really out of his expectations. Kill! Qin Feilong and the others didn't waste any more time. They immediately brandished their weapons and charged forward. The battle broke out in an instant, and the two sides immediately exchanged blows. Li Boyo and the rest obviously knew that Mo Yunjue was the strongest person in their group. Other than him, who was in the Astral Radiance realm, the others were not a concern. Therefore, they directly sent two Astral Boundary Cultivators to surround and attack Mo Yunjue. As soon as Mo Yunjue exchanged blows, he discovered that one of the opponents was a level 4 Astral Radiance warrior, while the other was a level 2 Astral Radiance warrior. Under the siege of these two people, it was not easy for him to escape. Everyone did as they had thought before. Even if their strength was no match for the other party, they would still try their best to escape from this ruin. As long as they managed to escape, they might still have a chance to live. Everyone's will to live was incomparably strong. Therefore, everyone exploded with their strongest strength in that instant, using their fastest speed to escape outside. Catch them, don't let them escape. Li Boyo hurriedly shouted. This was a battle where they had an overall advantage. If they let the other party escape, it would be too much of a pity. Chapter 4109. The White Dragon was chatting happily with the three beasties. It had not talked to a demon beast for a long time. Now that there was finally someone to talk to, it was naturally very happy. Bailey Hong Zhuang looked at the four beasties who were chatting happily. She could not help but smile. Sure enough, demon beasts had more in common with other demon beasts. The White Dragon's attitude was so unfriendly to her before, but it was quite friendly to the three beasties. After the White Dragon's reminder, she had already found the existence of the restriction. Sure enough, this restriction was just as the White Dragon had said. It required an extremely powerful force to break it. She had tried to use her strongest force to attack this restriction, but unfortunately, it did not have any effect. After she attacked, The restriction did not even have the slightest ripple. It was clear that her strength was too insignificant to this restriction. I didn't expect this restriction to be so strong. Bailey Hongzhuang looked emotional. Sure enough, cultivators who could take a dragon away must be extremely powerful. The white dragon glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and said lazily, I told you, without enough strength, it's impossible to break this restriction. If you want to break this restriction, I'm afraid you'll have to cultivate for many more years. White dragon, why do I see that you're so calm? Xiaohei looked at it in confusion. If my master can't help you break this restriction, you'll have to continue to stay here after we leave. The white dragon sighed helplessly. I don't want to, but there's no other way. I knew from the beginning that your master won't be able to help me break this restriction, so I'm more calm. After all, it did not have much hope in the first place, so naturally it was not disappointed. Have you tried to walk out yourself? Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask. The white dragon nodded. I've tried, but every time I try, I'll be fiercely attacked by it. So I gave up. Why don't you try to attack this restriction with me? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. No. The white dragon resisted. This restriction is very powerful. The last time I tried it, I was in a coma for a few years. I don't want to try it again. It doesn't feel good. How many years has he been unconscious for? Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. This white dragon should be very strong, but this restriction could make the white dragon unconscious for so long. Wasn't it too powerful? Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's incredulous expression, the white dragon couldn't help but explain, actually, this restriction isn't that exaggerated. It's just that I've been imprisoned here all these years, so my body is a little weak. Also, I seem to have suffered a serious injury, and I haven't recovered from it yet. You don't look like bad people, so I'll tell you directly. In fact, although my aura is still very strong, I've lost a lot of my strength and will need some time to recover. What's more, since I've already tried and there's no effect, I'm afraid there won't be any effect even if I add your power. White dragon, even if there's a glimmer of hope, we still have to try. Xiaohei couldn't help but say. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand slightly. Since the consequences are so serious, let's just forget about it. If the white dragon was to sleep for a few years because of this, she would feel guilty. Chapter 41:10. The White Dragon sighed. If I'm only unconscious for a few years, it's no big deal to me. However, what if I meet someone who can take me away while I'm unconscious? Wouldn't that be terrible? Sometimes I even wonder if the reason why I haven't met anyone who can take me away for so many years is because I missed the last time I fainted. Looking at the white dragon's pondering face, Xiaohei couldn't help but chuckle. I think you're thinking too much. If someone really did come and saw an unconscious dragon like you, they might just cook you and eat you. It's said that dragon meat is a great tonic for humans. Even if they didn't eat you, they would at least take away 2 dragon scales. Hearing this, the white dragon didn't get angry. Actually, what you said makes sense. I'll try to figure out if we can avoid this restrictive spell and get out. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the restrictive spell again. She understood that the white dragon was certain that she wouldn't be able to bring it out. However, she didn't care. There was no harm in trying anyway. Besides, Bewitching wanted to accept the inheritance, and it wasn't something that could be completed in a day or two. It wasn't a bad idea for her to stay here and accompany the white dragon, who was about to suffocate to death. After Mo Yunjue and the others escaped from the ruins, they immediately split into 3 groups and ran in different directions. When Ziren and Shangwan Yingying were in one group, Mo Yunjue and Ao Lingxiao were in another group. Rin Ziheng, Run Zimei, and Chu Jinfeng were in another group. Qian Feilong and the others chased after them and saw that they were running in 3 different directions. Since they had promised Li Boyo, they couldn't leave anyone alive. When Ziren and Shangwan Yingying ran as fast as they could, their faces were ugly. Once the other party caught up to them, it would be too difficult to face the enemy head-on. So, the best way was to prevent the other party from catching up to them. Damn it, there's nothing to hide in this broken place. It's too difficult to avoid being killed. Shangwan Yingying cursed as she ran. If they were in another place, they might be able to avoid the other party. Unfortunately, not a single blade of grass grew in this training ground. They were simply too conspicuous here. Inging, if they catch up to us later, I will try my best to stop them for a while. Don't look back, just run, understand? Xiron's expression was solemn and nervous. A complicated light flickered in the depths of his eyes, and his tone was unusually serious. It would be too difficult for them to escape today. But no matter what, he would risk his life to protect Shangwan Ingying. Hearing Xiron's words, Shangwan Ingying quickly shook her head. No, I will never leave you alone. Ingying, you have to listen to me. The Crimson Moon Sect's team is very strong. Even though we are good at speed, their cultivation level is higher than ours, and their speed will only be faster than ours. It is almost impossible for us to escape from their pursuit. The only thing I can do is to hold them back for as long as possible. This is our only chance. No. Shangwan Ingying shook her head with all her might. Her eyes were filled with tears, and her voice was sobbing. You said that you would stay with me no matter what. You can't abandon me like this. I'd rather die with you than live alone. Chapter 41:11. Ever since she embarked on the path of cultivation, she knew that it was very likely that she would lose her life. However, when the scene was right in front of her eyes, what hurt her the most was that she could no longer be with Xiron. Even if it meant death, she was not afraid. As long as she could be with Xiron, that was all that mattered. Ingying, when Xiron frowned, between his brows, there was a hint of emotion and reluctance. Don't say such silly things. You have to listen to me later. As long as you're alive, you can avenge me in the future. Shangwan Ingying couldn't control her tears. But what if when that time comes, I can't find you in the underworld? Don't be silly. I'll always be waiting for you. So you have to live well. Do you understand? When Xiron held Shangwan Ingying's hand tightly, his eyes were slightly red. The person he was most worried about was Shangwan Ingying. However, at a time like this, he could no longer think about the future. Shangwan Ingying's eyes were still red, but she didn't answer. She couldn't imagine how bleak the world would be without Xiron. Don't waste your energy running away. None of you will be able to escape today. Cheng Jianqing looked at the two figures in front of him who were running away quickly. There was a hint of mockery in his voice. Previously, these guys had almost caused him to lose his life. Fortunately, the initiative was now in his hands. He was very happy. Don't talk nonsense. Just kill them, another cultivator said. I heard that they have a good position in the Penlai Palace. They might have a lot of treasures on them. The sooner we kill them, the better. When Xiron looked at the four cultivators in front of him, if he remembered correctly, one of them should be at the first level of the Star Realm, one at the 9th level of the Purple Realm, and two at the 8th level of the Purple Realm. He and Shangwan Ingying were both at the 8th level of the Purple Realm. Facing two 8th level Purple Realm cultivators and one 9th level Purple Realm cultivator, they could still fight. However, facing a Star Realm cultivator was a lot of pressure for them. The gap between the Purple Realm and the Starlight Realm was not small. Moreover, he still had to face 4 cultivators. Even if he fought with his life on the line, he probably wouldn't stand chance. Ingying, I'll hold him back. You find an opportunity to escape. When Xiron said, Shangwan Ingying stubbornly shook her head. No, leave the revenge to Beichen and Hong Zhuang. They will definitely avenge us. Now, I want to fight alongside you. Even if we die, we will die together. Ingying. Xiron frowned. He didn't expect Shangwan Ingying to be so stubborn at this time. Xiron, you don't have to say anything more. I've already decided on this matter. Shangwan Ingying's expression was firm and resolute. The worst that can happen is death. When we decided to come to Penglai Island, weren't we already mentally prepared for this? If I was afraid of death, I wouldn't have insisted on coming here with you. Now that I'm here, I will definitely be with you. Shangwan Ingying's delicate and fair face shone with a resolute light. A smile even appeared on her lips. In this life, being able to meet you is already my greatest fortune. Moreover, although the situation in front of us is very troublesome, it's not like we don't have any strength to fight. Chapter 41:12. Please enter the text. Shangguan Yingying's eyes were filled with viciousness. Even though they were already at a disadvantage, if the other party wanted to take their lives, they would let the other party know that they were not easy to chew on. If the other party wanted to kill them, they would have to pay the price. Seeing Shangguan Yingying's determined look, Xiren's eyes changed a little. Then he nodded affirmatively. All right, since you said so, then let's fight together. They had to be together in life, and they had to be together in death. Now, that even Shangguan Yingying was fearless, what was there for him to be afraid of? Cheng Jianqing and the others looked at Shangguan Yingying and Xiren's resolute faces and found it funny. Since the two of you are so deeply in love, then I'll let the two of you die together. Unfortunately, no matter how deep your love is, it's useless. In the end, you'll still die in this place filled with skeletons. You damn bastard. It's all because of you. Shangguan Yingying stared at Cheng Jianqing. She remembered very clearly that if it weren't for Cheng Jianqing, Li Boyo wouldn't have come looking for them, and naturally, they wouldn't be in so much trouble now. Don't blame me. Cheng Jianqing sneered. I did see that incident with my own eyes. This isn't something you can deny just because you want to. An eye for an eye. I can only say that you have to pay the price for what you've done. Even if I'm going to die, I'll drag you down with me. Shangguan Yingying's gaze was fierce and ruthless. Her dark red eyes stared at Cheng Jianqing, as if she couldn't wait to skin him alive. After Cheng Jianqing noticed Shangguan Yingying's gaze, he couldn't help but feel a little scared. This bastard's gaze was really terrifying. In the next moment, the battle between the two parties erupted. Shangguan Ying directly fought with Cheng Jianqing, while Xiren fought with the Purple Realm 8th level and the Purple Realm 9th level cultivator. Originally, when Xiren thought that as long as that Star Radiance Realm cultivator made a move, their situation would definitely become very bad. However, he did not expect that the cultivator would not even bother to attack them. He merely stood aside and watched the show, leaving the matter to Cheng Jianqing and the other two to settle. Noticing this, Xiren couldn't help but feel secretly delighted. As long as the other party watched the show for a while longer, they would have more hope. Many people lost because of their carelessness. As long as the other party continued to be so careless, there might be a chance to change the outcome. Bang, bang, bang. The five of them quickly clashed together. As their origin energy collided, one after another, martial skills exploded out continuously. Xiren and Shangguan Yingying had grown up together, and they usually cultivated together, so when the two of them worked together, their fighting strength was very outstanding. It was precisely because of this that the two of them were able to withstand the attacks of the other three without falling into a disadvantageous position under such circumstances. Cheng Jianqing and the others obviously didn't expect such a situation to occur, and their expressions immediately turned ugly. I was still wondering how strong you were. It turns out that you're completely at the bottom of this team. Xiren directly stabbed Cheng Jianqing with his sword. This meddlesome bastard had become the person they hated the most. Chapter 41:13. Cheng Jianqing could also feel Shangguan Yingying and Xiren's murderous intent towards him. A haze flashed across his eyes as he panicked. He had thought that he could easily get rid of them. However, he did not expect the two of them to be so powerful when they joined forces. It had completely exceeded his expectations. Now, he had been injured by them, even though he had the advantage in numbers. This was really embarrassing. He even felt that if this continued, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying might really kill him. Mu Zhe, hurry up and help. Cheng Jianqing turned to look at Mu Zhe, who was watching the show. Mu Zhe was the only Starlight Jing expert among the four of them. As long as Mu Zhe intervened, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying would definitely die. Hearing Cheng Jianqing's words, Mu Zhe glanced at him lazily. There was disdain and contempt between his brows. Cheng Jianqing, the other party's cultivation is not any weaker than yours. However, you can't even handle them. This level of strength is really terrible. I'm giving you a chance to improve. Fighting with them is a good way to train your battle power. Muze still had his arms crossed in front of his chest. It was obvious that he was planning to continue watching the show. He had no intention of intervening immediately. Seeing Muze like this, Chung Jianqing's expression turned extremely ugly. He could not help but curse in his heart. This damned fellow. He's purposely trying to see me get injured. Chung Jianqing knew very well that many people were dissatisfied with his decision to join Li Boyo's team. After all, his strength could only be considered average in the Crimson Moon sect. There was still a large gap between him and Li Boyo's team, which was at the top. It was only because he had provided Li Boyo with information that Li Boyo had agreed to let him join the team. Even so, there were still many cultivators in the team who looked down on him. Muze was one of them. Now that Li Boyo had become a cripple, there was no way for him to take care of him in the future. That was why Muze had done this. When Xiren and Shangwan Yingying could not help but look at each other when they saw this. They never thought that there would be some conflict between the four of them. This had given them an opportunity. Yingying, we have to seize this opportunity. Shangwan Yingying nodded, and the ruthlessness in her eyes intensified. All right, bang. Xiren and Shangwan Yingying unleashed a joint martial skill at the same time. A tyrannical burst of energy erupted. An incomparably dazzling golden light quietly appeared and mercilessly attacked Chung Jianqing. Noticing this terrifying light, Chung Jianqing couldn't help but widen his eyes. His eyes were filled with shock. Such a terrifying force had completely exceeded the limits of what he could endure. After the other two cultivators noticed this scene, their faces flashed with shock. They did not expect that Xiren and Shangwan Yingying's combined martial skill would be so powerful. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion resounded, and a violent force directly blasted Chung Jianqing's entire body, flying backward. Poochie! After falling to the ground, Chung Jianqing involuntarily coughed out a mouthful of blood. Immediately after that, his aura weakened. From the looks of it, he didn't have long to live. The other two cultivators were lucky to have dodged in time. Otherwise, their fates would not be much better than Chung Jianqing's. Chapter 41:14. Chung Jianqing stared blankly at when Xiren and Shangwan Yingying not far away. He never thought that he would lose his life at a time like this. This was clearly a sure-win situation, but why did it end up like this? Looking at the burning anger and hatred in the other party's eyes, he could not help but feel a little regretful. If he had known that this would be the outcome, he would not have told Li Boyo about this. If that was the case, there wouldn't be so many things happening. After Chung Jianqing's death, Muze and the other two cultivators only glanced at him indifferently, their expressions indifferent. This guy had only joined their team later on. They did not have any feelings for Chung Jianqing at all. On the contrary, they only thought that Chung Jianqing's joining had lowered their standards. Now that Li Boyo could no longer stay in this team, it was good that Chung Jianqing was dead. He was not suitable to stay here at all. Muze slowly walked in front of Xiren and Shangwan Yingying. All right, I fulfilled one of your wishes and let Chung Jianqing be your scapegoat. Now that Chung Jianqing is dead, it's time for you to die together. After all, this is what we promised eldest senior brother. Hearing Muze's words, Shangwan Yingying and Xiren could not help but feel their hearts sink. It seemed that Muze was going to make a move. Li Boyo is now a cripple. Why would you attack us for a cripple like him? To be honest, what we can give you is much more than what Li Boyo can give you now. When Xiren stared at Muze, he wanted to try and see if he could persuade the other party. After all, as long as he could keep his life, that was enough. Eldest senior brother does not have much ability now, but he has helped me a lot in the past. Even if it's for the sake of our past friendship, I should still help him complete this last task. Muze slowly said, That's nothing more than friendship, when Xiren said slowly. He helped you, but didn't you help him as well? As long as you let us go, we will definitely give you something that you will be satisfied with. Muze chuckled. Don't talk to me about these useless things. As long as I kill you, your things will also be mine. No. Xiren shook his head. Muze frowned. What do you mean? You should know that Hong Zhuang is an outstanding doctor and has made such a great contribution to Penglai Palace. She has the most treasures. As long as you let us go, we can give you our Chinquan bags and give you a lot of spirit stones. With these spirit stones and cultivation resources, your chances of success in the future will be greater. This is definitely a good thing. Shang Waningying also said, Hong Zhuang and I are like sisters. We don't distinguish between you and me. As long as we ask for something from Hong Zhuang, she will definitely agree. Rather than helping a cripple who is of no help to you, why don't you agree with us? This way, your path will be smoother. When Ziren and Shang Waningying looked at each other, at present, they could only think of ways to deceive the other party. At least they could delay it for a while. After all, after the previous battle, they had consumed a lot of Yuan Li. They could take advantage of this time to recover a little. Chapter 41:15. The current Li Buyo was indeed of no help to them. On the contrary, spirit stones were indeed what cultivators needed the most. Even though they were the strongest team in Penglai Palace, they still had to work hard to obtain enough cultivation resources. However, with their current need for spirit stones, the number was still not enough. It was precisely because of this that they had to think of other ways to earn spirit stones. After all, in order to maintain their current status, their strength must be steadily improved. Otherwise, if they were slightly slower, others would catch up to them. This was not a result they wanted to see. When Ziren and Shang Waningying saw that the other party did not refuse immediately. On the contrary, they began to think about it and were secretly delighted. Li Buyo believed that he still had that kind of appeal, but in fact, from the moment his Dantian was destroyed, his previous appeal had disappeared. This world had always been so cruel. As long as you had no strength, you were a complete waste. If the other party helped you because of old feelings, that was affection. However, if the other party did not care about old feelings, that was also their duty. Muze looked at Ziren and Shang Waningying in front of him and said, "Why should I believe what you said? I can swear." When Ziren said, "I can give you the Chinquan bag now. As for what we promised you, we will definitely do it. What's more, you are so strong that we are no match for you at all. If we don't fulfill our promise, you can come to us." "What if you stay in Penglai Palace and don't come out?" Muze asked in a deep voice. "Impossible. No matter who it is impossible to stay in one place and not come out. In addition, we have to come to the training ground on weekdays. Even if we can hide for a while, can we hide for a lifetime?" When Ziren said. At this time, another cultivator next to Muze said, "Words are no guarantee. You can write down how many spirit stones you owe us on the note now. This way, if you go back on your word, we can take this note and go to Penglai Palace." Hearing this, Muze's eyes lit up and he immediately nodded. "Not bad. This is a good idea." As a cultivator, face was the most important thing to them. If someone were to come knocking on their door like this, it would be extremely embarrassing. He believed that under such circumstances, Ziren and Wan Jiabao would not dare to go back on their word. "All right, no problem." Ziren nodded. Right now, the most important thing for them was to stay alive. Everything else was secondary. After when Ziren finished writing the note and handed it to Muze, Muze's eyes flashed with a hint of satisfaction when he saw the number of spirit stones written on it. This amount of spiritual stones was truly a huge sum of money. He had long heard that Bailey Hongzhuang of Penglai Palace was the richest. With these spirit stones, he could catch up with other practitioners in the future. "We'll let you off today. However, you have to leave this place immediately. Don't let anyone from the Crimson Moon sect discover you," Muze said in a deep voice. "Don't worry, we'll leave immediately." When Ziren and Shang Waningying looked at each other before the two of them quickly left. After when Ziren and Shang Waningying left, the two cultivators could not help but look at Muze. "Muze, if we let them go just like that, will we?" Chapter 41:16. Please enter the text. They knew very well that Li Buyo would no longer be a disciple of the Crimson Moon sect after this trip. It would be very difficult for him to continue staying on the Penglai Island, and he would have to return to the outside world. Under such circumstances, what else could Li Boyo say? Instead of being thanked by someone who had no future, it would be better for them to get some substantial rewards. This would be better for their future. Moreover, we don't know where Bailey Hongzhuang is. If Bailey Hongzhuang is not dead this time and survives. If that happens, we might have to endure Bailey Hongzhuang's crazy revenge. A powerful doctor's appeal is not small. I don't intend to get into such trouble for a cripple. Hearing Mu Zhe's words, the other two cultivators nodded. Mu Zhe, you're right. That's the best way. On one hand, they would gain enough benefits. On the other hand, the other party would not hold a grudge. It was a win-win situation. After Xiren and Shangguan Yingying had distanced themselves, both of them felt a little relieved. Xiren, it's all thanks to you that we managed to convince them. Otherwise, if we were to fight, our situation would not be optimistic. Shangguan Yingying could not help but sigh. Her eyes shone with excitement. Just dealing with Cheng Jianxing and the other two had already exhausted a lot of their energy. If Mu Zhe were to intervene, they would not have any hope of winning. They did not expect that Xiren would only move his lips and they would be able to escape from such a dangerous situation. Until now, she still felt as if she was in a dream. It did not feel real at all. When Xiren chuckled, actually, this situation isn't strange. Li Boyo no longer has any meaning to these people. They only chose to help because of their past relationship with him. However, when it came to friendship and benefits, it was much weaker. We were lucky. Although these people have a certain level of friendship with Li Boyo, it is not very deep. That's why we took advantage of this loophole. If we had met someone who had a good relationship with Li Boyo, I'm afraid it would not have been so easy. Shangguan Yingying nodded slightly. Indeed. What should we do now? Yunju, Zimei, and the others are probably still in danger. If they're left like this, the two of them would naturally be safe. However, Imo Yunjue, Renzime, and the others would still be in danger. However, once they joined in, they might also be in danger. Let's go find them. Xiren's eyes flashed with a resolute and determined light. They were a team, so they naturally could not abandon each other. Moreover, according to their previous situation, the number of people chasing them was basically twice their number. If the two of them joined in, then the other party's advantage would not be so obvious, and they might even have a chance of survival. Okay. Shangguan Yingying's eyes were as bright as the stars. This was also her idea. The next moment, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying began to look around, they only remembered that the three teams had run in different directions. Now, they couldn't immediately find each other's location. They could only look around and hope to find each other as soon as possible. Chapter 41:17. Ren Ziheng, Ren Zimei, and Chu Jinfeng fled as the pursuers behind them relentlessly chased after them. There were only 3 of them, but the pursuers behind them had 5 people. Among them, 4 of them were about the same strength as them, but there was still an Astral Radiance Realm cultivator. This made them feel even more pressured. If it was Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they might not feel too anxious when facing such an opponent. However, they did not have the abnormal battle prowess of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Hence, it was practically impossible for them to escape from such a situation. Stop running. You can't escape anymore. Qian Feilong looked at the 3 figures bitterly, trying to survive as a trace of disdain and indifference surfaced in his eyes. Ren Ziheng and the others looked at each other as their expressions became extremely ugly. An indescribable panic spread in their hearts, but they did not stop because of this. Seeing that Ren Ziheng and the others were still fleeing, Qian Feilong's figure flew and blocked their path. I've already said that none of you can escape. Rather than stubbornly resisting like this, you might as well just kill yourselves. At least this way, you'll have a quick death. Seeing this, Ren Ziheng and the others were forced to stop. The pursuers had practically surrounded them in an instant. Qian Feilong, there is no enmity between us. Why must you force us to do this? Ren Ziheng's expression was ugly. As a rather famous cultivator in the Crimson Moon sect, Ren Ziheng naturally knew of Qian Feilong's reputation. However, he never imagined that there would be a day when they would cross paths like this. There is indeed no enmity between us. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for being in the same group as Bailey Hongzhuang. The reason why you have ended up like this is because you've been dragged down by her. Qian Feilong shrugged his shoulders. He had no interest in Ren Ziheng and the others. To him, these fellows were not even worthy of being called opponents. Using them to deal with them would only be a waste of time. I'll give you a chance now. End yourselves. At least you can preserve some dignity. Otherwise, once you fall into our hands, you will suffer a little. Qian Feilong said coldly. Ren Ziheng and the others looked at each other, and their expressions revealed struggle and hesitation. They knew very clearly in their hearts that they weren't a match for Qian Feilong, who was at the Starlight Realm. However, they were also unable to accept the fact that they had to self-destruct like this. At this time, Chu Jinfeng gave Ren Ziheng and the other two a meaningful glance. He quietly took out something with his right hand and shouted, "Run!" Although Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei did not react to what Chu Jinfeng had taken out, with their tacit understanding, they did not hesitate to run forward when Chu Jinfeng shouted that word. Qian Feilong and the others naturally didn't expect Chu Jinfeng to take out something at this time. However, Qian Feilong's reaction speed was also very fast. When he saw Chu Jinfeng move, he quickly retreated a little. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out, and the ground where Chu Jinfeng and the others had been standing had been blasted into a huge crater. Smoke and dust filled the air. The Crimson Moon sect cultivators who were closer to the crater were immediately sent flying by the explosion. Although Qian Feilong had sensed that something was amiss and had retreated a little, the area of effect was very wide. He was still injured. Chapter 41:18. At the same time, Chu Jinfeng and the other two quickly ran away. This was their only chance. After hearing the huge commotion behind them, Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei could not help but gasp in amazement. Clearly, they did not expect Chu Jinfeng to have such a trick up his sleeve. Jinfeng, are these the explosives that junior sister Bailey had made? Ren Zimei immediately recognized the source of these things. When they had first seen Bailey Hongzhuang using these explosives, they had been deeply shocked by its effects. Chu Jinfeng nodded gently. Junior sister Bailey had made some previously, and I had kept a copy with me in case of an emergency. I never thought that I would actually have to use it this time. The power of these explosives is truly extraordinary. Ren Ziheng's eyes were filled with admiration. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly a genius to have been able to make such explosives. However, Qian Feilong and the others are no ordinary people either. I hope that these explosives can seriously injure them. Otherwise, once they catch up to us, I'm afraid that our situation will become even worse. Big brother, we've already come this far. How bad can it get? At most, we'll lose our lives. At this moment, Ren Zimei had become much calmer. The other party had wanted their lives in the first place. Now that they had come this far, the worst that could happen was that they would lose their lives. On the contrary, as long as they could make the other party pay a price, that would be good enough. You're right, Ren Ziheng nodded. I hope that we can take advantage of this opportunity to escape. Ren Ziheng and the other two unleashed their greatest speed and fled forward. At this moment, they felt a little depressed. The teleportation formation was so far away from them. If they were close enough, they would still have a chance of survival. However, the teleportation formation was so far away that it would be difficult for them to reach it. If the other party were to catch up to them during this period of time, they would be completely finished. When Qian Feilong and the others regained their senses, they realized that they were all injured. Qian Feilong's arm was dripping with blood. His eyes were gloomy and vicious. I didn't expect these guys to have such powerful treasures. Damn it. The situation of the other four cultivators was even worse than Qian Feilong's. One of the cultivators had been seriously injured by the explosion, and his aura had already withered. Even though he had consumed a life-saving elixir immediately, his complexion did not improve at all. Another cultivator's legs were injured by the explosion, and he fell to the ground, unable to stand up. "Senior Brother Qian, you must avenge us." The cultivator whose legs were injured had an ugly expression on his face. He had thought that he could toy with the other party for a while, but he did not expect that they would fail miserably and pay such a huge price. Qian Feilong felt embarrassed when he saw them like this. He immediately nodded and said, "Don't worry, I'll definitely kill them." Immediately after, only 3 people were left from the original 5-man team. However, compared to their previous rather lazy appearance, the eyes of the 3 people were now filled with killing intent. As long as they caught up to him, they would kill him immediately. Chapter 4119. Please enter the text. Damn it. They're catching up again. Chu Jinfeng's face was gloomy and his eyes were filled with despair. He could feel the other party's aura getting closer and closer. His wishful thinking had been extinguished as the other party had caught up. Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei's faces were also ashen. At this moment, they really had no other choice. Forget it. Since we've already come this far, there's nothing we can do. Why don't we just fight? At most, we'll be men again after 18 years. Ren Ziheng steeled his heart, and his eyes became sharp and resolute. As a cultivator, he had long been prepared to lose his life at any time. Rather than cowering and dying, it was better to fight fair and square. This way, at least their deaths would be worth it. Ren Zimei nodded. "All right, let's fight to the death with these despicable bastards." Chu Jinfeng looked at Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei beside him and said, "You two run first. I'll think of a way to draw them away and give you a chance to live." Hearing Chu Jinfeng's words, Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei were stunned and immediately rejected Chu Jinfeng's suggestion. "No, why not?" Chu Jinfeng quickly said, "Since we've already prepared to die, if I die alone, the 3 of us die together. We die too. Why don't you let me fight and see if I can buy you some time? As long as you can successfully escape, my sacrifice will be worth it. From the aura of the other party, there's still some distance away from us. I'll raise my aura and draw them in another direction while you two run for your lives. Do you understand?" Chu Jinfeng's expression was resolute and resolute. He had already thought of this. As a man, his strength may not be comparable to others, but he would definitely do his best to protect the woman he loved. "Jinfeng, you can't." Ren Zimei quickly shook her head, her expression becoming incomparably resolute. Chu Jinfeng's lips curled into a smile. "Zimei, I've said before that no matter what, I'll protect you. For you to agree to be with me is the happiest thing that has happened to me in all these years. Although we haven't been together for long, it's already very satisfying for me. I don't know if I can let you live by doing this, but I will do my best." He knew very well that he was no match for Qian Feilong and the others. Therefore, the only thing he could do was to try his best to delay them, hoping to fight for a chance for Ren Zimei and the others. "I don't agree." Ren Zimei was very determined. Tears quietly appeared in her eyes. Although she had always liked to say that Chu Jinfeng was indecent and unreliable, at this moment, what Chu Jinfeng had done shocked and touched her heart. An indescribable feeling of gratitude spread through her heart. It was this guy who usually didn't behave properly, who was willing to risk his life for her at this time. When Chu Jinfeng saw Ren Zimei's state, he couldn't help but turn his gaze to Ren Ziheng. "Ziheng, I'll leave Zimei to you. You must find a way to survive." Ren Ziheng frowned. His eyes were bloodshot, but in the end, he nodded. All right. He couldn't let down Chu Jinfeng's good intentions. Now wasn't the time to think about all this. As long as there was a chance of survival, he had to fight for it. Chapter 41:20. Please enter the text. The next moment, Chu Jinfeng glanced at Ren Zimei reluctantly, and then quickly turned in another direction. At the same time, the traces of his aura also became stronger. Seeing Chu Jinfeng leave like this, Ren Zimei's tears suddenly burst out, and she hurriedly shouted, Jinfeng. However, Chu Jinfeng seemed to have made up his mind and disappeared from Ren Zimei and Ren Zimei's sight without looking back. Ren Ziheng pulled Ren Zimei and quickly left, saying, Zimei, you must not disappoint Jinfeng's good intentions. Now, as long as you can still live, that is the best. Ren Zimei left in another direction under Ren Ziheng's strength, but her tears could not help falling. The scenes of her time with Chu Jinfeng flashed across her mind one by one, causing her heart to tremble constantly. She could not help but regret. If she had known, she would have treated Chu Jinfeng better. At least, she would not have left the regrets today. Or, if she died with Chu Jinfeng like this, perhaps she would be more relieved. Otherwise, facing such a Chu Jinfeng, how could she be happy? Not long after Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei left, they heard the fluctuation of essence power coming from afar. The two people's hearts immediately sank. They understood that Chu Jinfeng had been caught up by the other party. Ren Zimei could not help but sob, her heart aching to the extreme. Ren Ziheng looked at Ren Zimei's appearance, and a trace of struggle flashed in his eyes, saying, Zimei, do you want to go back? He was very clear that the relationship between Ren Zimei and Chu Jinfeng did not come easily. They had known each other for so long, and it was only during this period of time that they truly got together. Even though this time together was not considered very long, their feelings were extremely deep. Hearing Ren Ziheng's words, Ren Zimei was slightly stunned, then nodded and said, yes. Even if the result after going was death, she was also willing, as long as she could die together with Chu Jinfeng. Okay, then let's go back together, Ren Ziheng said. He found that he also could not harden his heart and could not watch Chu Jinfeng die for them. If they were together, at least they could still fight. As early as when he had just joined Penglai Palace, he had already become friends with Chu Jinfeng. After these years of getting along, they were already real brothers. If he was so afraid of death, he would not be able to forgive himself. Big brother, you should go. I will go alone, Ren Zimei said. She no longer cared about life and death, but she could not implicate Ren Ziheng. Ren Ziheng smiled faintly. Now that things have come to this, could it be that I can still let my little sister go alone? Let's go together. No matter what the result is, we have to give it our all. Big brother. Ren Zimei's eyes were red. This feeling was too painful. On one side was Chu Jinfeng, and on the other was Ren Ziheng. She really couldn't make up her mind. Don't think too much. Let's go back. It's fine as long as we don't regret it. Ren Ziheng looked at Ren Zimei with eyes full of tenderness and love. He only had Ren Zimei as his family. All along, what he had hoped for the most was to help Ren Zimei find a good man. As long as Ren Zimei was happy, everything was fine. Although he knew that this decision was impulsive and irrational, he still made the decision. Most of the time, humans were still emotional. If they could maintain their rationality all the time, they wouldn't be human anymore. Chapter 41:21. After making their decision, Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei no longer hesitated and immediately rushed in the direction of the Yuanli movement. Qian Feilong and the rest caught up to Chu Jinfeng only to find that he was alone. They could not help but frown. They did not expect him to play such a trick at such a time. You're quite self-sacrificing, aren't you? You'd rather die to protect them? Qian Feilong stared coldly at Chu Jinfeng, his eyes filled with icy, murderous intent. He hated Chu Jinfeng to the extreme. If it was not for this damned bastard sneak attack, he would not have been injured. Chu Jinfeng's face was gloomy and his eyes flickered with intense hatred. So what? Do you think I'll be as cold-blooded as a despicable and shameless bastard like you? Humph. Qian Feilong snorted coldly. Do you think you'll be able to buy enough time for them? This training ground is so big. If they want to escape to the teleportation formation, it won't be done in a short time. In this time, it'll be enough for us to catch up to them. When that time comes, they'll still be on the road to death. Looking at Chu Jinfeng's fearless look, the malicious light in Qian Feilong's eyes intensified. Originally, I only wanted to give you a quick death. However, your actions just now have thoroughly angered me. So, I've decided to let you experience what it means to live a life worse than death. Hearing Qian Feilong's words, Chu Jinfeng could not help but frown. He asked, "What do you want to do?" "What I want to do?" Qian Feilong noticed the change in Chu Jinfeng's expression, and the smile on his lips widened. "According to my judgment, you should like the woman who came with you very much, right?" Chu Jinfeng's expression changed slightly. "Why are you asking this?" In fact, he knew in his heart that although he had purposely changed the direction to buy some time for Ren Zimei and Chu Jinfeng, it was still unknown whether he would succeed. "What do you think is the most painful way to make a woman suffer?" Qian Feilong's smile became even more wretched and smug. The two cultivators behind him also laughed evilly. Seeing this, Chu Jinfeng's expression suddenly turned ugly. He immediately charged towards Qian Feilong. "You despicable and shameless fellow." Qian Feilong sent Chu Jinfeng flying with a punch and said disdainfully, "You want to protect the woman you like with your little strength? Dream on. After we kill you, we'll send those two people to accompany you. It's just that woman might be a little late. After all, she's quite pretty." Chu Jinfeng's eyes turned red. He felt that Qian Feilong might really do such a thing. Whenever he thought of that possibility, he wanted to tear this fellow before him into pieces. Even so, he still couldn't vent his anger. "I'll kill you." Chu Jinfeng got up and charged at Qian Feilong once again, the sword in his hand stabbing at his opponent without hesitation. Boom! With a flying kick, Qian Feilong snatched Chu Jinfeng's sword and stabbed it into his body. "You good-for-nothing, you'd better meet the king of hell as soon as possible." As the sword pierced his body, Chu Jinfeng's eyes widened. However, his hands were still wrapped tightly around Qian Feilong's leg, refusing to let the latter leave. Chapter 41:22. Qian Feilong and the others originally did not put Chu Jinfeng in their eyes, but after seeing Chu Jinfeng's stubbornness, they could not help but frown. "This guy is really crazy." Qian Feilong looked at the guy who was hugging his legs tightly, and a trace of disgust flashed in his eyes. "What a hateful guy. I'll let you die a quick death." Qian Feilong took out his weapon and immediately prepared to stab Chu Jinfeng. This kind of annoying dog skin plaster, he had to get rid of him completely. When Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei rushed back, they saw this scene, especially when they saw Chu Jinfeng vomiting blood and still hugging Qian Feilong's legs tightly. Not letting him leave, Ren Zimei's tears flowed down like a broken string of pearls. "Stop!" Ren Ziheng shouted loudly. Hearing Ren Ziheng's voice, Qian Feilong could not help but turn his head. After seeing that Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei had actually returned, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. "Oh, I didn't expect you to be so loyal. Actually coming back at this time, just in time to save us a trip to chase you." Qian Feilong's face showed a trace of a satisfied smile. He might as well take advantage of this time to catch them all in one fell swoop, saving him a lot of effort. After seeing that Ren Zimei and Ren Zimei had actually returned, Chu Jinfeng's face flashed with a strong sense of surprise, and then said absent-mindedly, "Why did you come back?" He had done everything he could to buy some time with great difficulty, but Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei had returned. Didn't that mean that everything was in vain? Jinfeng. Ren Zimei looked at Chu Jinfeng with tears in her eyes. She clearly noticed that Chu Jinfeng's waist was constantly bleeding. Her heart was in so much pain, and it seemed that her whole person, even breathing, had become incomparably difficult. "You are too stupid." Chu Jinfeng sighed. His whole person looked unusually helpless, but his eyes could not help but redden. Ren Ziheng looked at the miserable Chu Jinfeng in front of him, and when he looked again at Qian Feilong, his eyes were also surging with hatred. "It's all because of these hateful guys. Jinfeng, even if we have to go underground together today, with us accompanying you, you won't be lonely." Back then, the three of them had been traveling together. Even if they went underground, the three of them should continue to be together. The corners of Chu Jinfeng's eyes gradually became moist. He hoped that Rinziheng and Runzime would be able to leave safely, but after seeing them return like this, he couldn't help but feel moved. Papa! Qian Feilong clapped his hands with a smile and pretended to be moved. What a scene of brotherly affection. It's really touching. The other two cultivators could not help but chuckle. A weakling would always be a weakling. The affection shown at this moment was nothing more than a joke in their eyes. Evil is doomed to destruction. Qian Feilong, you will die a miserable death in the future. Rinzime's eyes were cold and ruthless. A bone-deep killing intent surged in her chest. The guy in front of her was the person she hated the most. Qian Feilong chuckled. You don't have to worry about whether I will die miserably in the future. However, today all three of you will die in my hands. Attack! Qian Feilong waved his hand, and the two cultivators behind him immediately drew their weapons. Chapter 41-23. Runzime and Rinziheng were the first to step forward. The two of them were now completely surrounded by hatred. If they could, they really wanted to chop these fellows in front of them into minced meat. Qian Feilong looked disdainfully at Chu Jinfeng, who was sprawled on the ground, and said, You're now at death's door. I'll give you a chance to see with your own eyes how they'll die to save you. This sentence undoubtedly pierced Chu Jinfeng's heart fiercely. If it were not for him, Rinzime and Rinziheng would not have rushed back at a time like this. Even though they might not be able to escape successfully, even if they escaped, at least they still had a slim chance of survival. However, they had given up this slim chance of survival for him. Bang, bang, bang. After Rinziheng and the others exchanged blows, the two of them unleashed their strongest battle prowess. Perhaps the hatred in their hearts was too strong, so when they exchanged blows, their auras were extremely shocking. The two cultivators had originally been very disdainful of Rinziheng and Rinzime. However, after this exchange, they had no choice but to put away their contempt. This was because under such circumstances, if they were even the slightest bit careless, they could really capsize in the gutter. Although Rinziheng and Rinzime were not considered top-notch experts in Penglai Palace, they often trained and their combat power was definitely not weak. What's more, the two of them were brother and sister. The tacit understanding between them was amazing. Boom! Under the combined attack of Rinziheng and Rinzime, one of the cultivators was sent flying. Blood flowed from the corner of his lips. Qian Feilong could not help but frown when he saw this. He had thought that the two of them would be enough to deal with Rinziheng and Rinzime. He never thought that they would be the ones to teach them a lesson. His expression instantly turned very ugly. When Chu Jinfeng saw that Rinziheng and Rinzime were actually able to defeat one of the cultivators, his eyes flashed with joy. Rinziheng and Rinzime looked at each other, but they did not feel very happy about this situation. This was because they knew very well that even if the two cultivators were dead, they would not be able to deal with Qian Feilong alone. Everything that they had done now could only be said to be a little bit of payback. As long as they could make the other party unhappy, they would be happy. Two pieces of trash. Qian Feilong looked at his two teammates with dissatisfaction. Their cultivation was clearly not weaker than the other parties, but they still lost. How embarrassing. After being reprimanded by Qian Feilong, the faces of the two cultivators turned very ugly. However, when they thought about how much stronger Qian Feilong was than them, they could only swallow their anger, even if they were unconvinced. Since they can't get rid of you, I'll have to do it myself. Qian Feilong slowly unsheathed his weapon and looked at Rinziheng and the other man in front of him. I didn't expect you two to have some ability in your last desperate struggle. However, in the face of absolute power, you two are still no match for me. Seeing that Qian Feilong was prepared to personally take action, the expressions of Rinziheng and the other man turned grave. Zime, be careful, Rinziheng said. Rinzime nodded. Big brother, even if we lose our lives in the end, as long as we can get back some interest, that's good enough. Chapter 41-24. Qian Feilong found it laughable when he saw the two of them giving it their all. If their cultivation was not high enough, it would be useless no matter how hard they tried. They could only blame themselves for not working hard enough in their cultivation, which caused their cultivation to be inferior to his. Ding, ding, ding. Unfortunately, they'd already realized that Qian Feilong's strength was extremely powerful at the instant they'd fought against him. Merely his strength was already not something that they could contend against. The gap between the Starlight Realm and the Purple Realm was like a chasm that could not be crossed. Bang! Qian Feilong slammed his palm on Run Zime's body, and she fell heavily to the ground. She could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. The air was filled with the faint smell of blood. Seeing that Ren Zime was injured, Chu Jinfeng and Ren Ziheng could not help but call out, "Zime!" In the next moment, Qian Feilong attacked Ren Ziheng. He kicked Ren Ziheng's body several times in succession, causing Ren Ziheng's body to fall heavily to the ground, leaving a long trail on the ground. Qian Feilong stood up straight and looked at Chu Jinfeng and the other two who were all on the ground. The disdain in his eyes grew. A bunch of laughable trash. He clapped his hands and felt that it was as easy as blowing off dust. Ren Zime struggled to get up. However, her internal organs were in so much pain that she could not even get up. Qian Feilong turned to look at Chu Jinfeng and said, "Haven't you always wanted to protect this woman? Then I'll kill her first and let you have a taste of pain." Chu Jinfeng and Ren Ziheng's expressions changed when they heard this. Ren Zime's face turned pale as well. At this moment, she felt that death was very close. Qian Feilong held his sword and slowly walked in front of Ren Zime. Ren Zime could not help but step back. Unfortunately, she could not move much in her current state. Qian Feilong stood still and looked at the emptiness in Ren Zime's eyes. He could not help but chuckle. "Don't be afraid. It won't be long before they join you." Ren Zime stared at Qian Feilong in front of her, and her gaze gradually became firm. "Big brother, Jinfeng, I'll wait for you underground." "Qian Feilong, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost." Hearing Ren Zime's words, Qian Feilong's face turned cold, and the sword in his hand stabbed out without hesitation. "Die, Qi!" Ren Zime closed her eyes, but she did not feel any pain. On the contrary, she heard a groan in front of her. Ren Zime quickly opened her eyes and looked in front of her. She didn't know when Ren Ziheng suddenly stood in front of her. Qian Feilong looked at Ren Ziheng and frowned. "You're really in a hurry to die. Do you think I won't kill her just because you're standing in front of her? Big brother." Ren Zime looked at Ren Ziheng in horror. Her heart felt as if it had been squeezed by someone, and even breathing became difficult. "Big brother, how are you?" "Big brother." Ren Ziheng turned his head and looked at Ren Zime beside him. His voice was pale and weak. "Zime, big brother will wait for you underground." Chapter 41-25. Big brother, don't die. Ren Zime stared blankly at Ren Ziheng, who was lying in a pool of blood, and her tears flowed uncontrollably. Her heart ached, and she was filled with regret. She was like a puppet who had lost its soul, and her heart was filled with pain. Her big brother had died because of her. If she had not insisted on returning, Ren Ziheng would not have fallen into such a state. Ever since they were young, Ren Ziheng had always taken care of her in every way possible. She had always hoped that Ren Ziheng would find a gentle and virtuous sister-in-law. However, Xiren had now died for her sake. She looked at Qian Feilong again and felt that this fellow was a demon. Because of this fellow, she had lost everything that she cherished the most. Chu Jinfeng looked at the scene, and his face turned pale as if he had been hit by a heavy blow. Although he had already expected such a situation, seeing Ren Ziheng fall in front of him like this, he still felt that he could not accept it. Qian Feilong and the others looked at Ren Zime and the others in agony, and their faces were filled with indifference. There was even a sense of satisfaction. Weaklings will always be weaklings. They could not even control their own life and death. You bunch of good-for-nothings. You should have expected this to happen. I'll give you some time to say your goodbyes. I'm afraid that you won't be able to find each other in the underworld. Huh? Rinzime glared fiercely at Qian Feilong. Her heart was filled with hatred. However, she was now a fish on the chopping block. No matter how much hatred she felt, it was useless. I know that you're not convinced. Qian Feilong laughed icily as his eyes fell upon Rinzime. You should be glad that I'm not interested in you. Otherwise, if I were to rape you and kill you, wouldn't you hate me even more? Hearing this, Rinzime's face changed and a sense of fear crept into her heart. She could not bear such humiliation. She would rather throw her life away. That would be easier. Noticing the change in Rinzime's eyes, the smile in Qian Feilong's eyes deepened. You can die with your big brother. Just as he spoke, Qian Feilong's sharp sword stabbed towards Rinzime. Ding! Just as Qian Feilong's sharp sword was about to stab Rinzime, suddenly, a throwing knife blocked his sharp sword. Only a crisp sound was heard, and his attack towards Rinzime did not succeed. This sudden turn of events shocked Qian Feilong and Rinzime. They couldn't help but look at the source of the flying knife. Mo Yunjue, Ao Ling Xiao, Xiren, and Shangguan Yingying slowly appeared in their line of sight. Seeing the appearance of Mo Yunjue and the other three, Rinzime and Chu Jinfeng's eyes flashed with a trace of joy. They had helpers. Qian Feilong couldn't help but frown when he saw the latter. His eyes flashed with surprise. He could not understand. Everyone had clearly split up to chase after these fellows. Moreover, according to their distribution, they should have been confident enough to completely kill these fellows. How could these guys still be alive? Although the four of them were injured, and their injuries weren't light, the fact that they could still appear here alive was already very inconceivable. Senior Brother Ren. Chapter 41-26. When Mo Yunjue and the others saw this scene, their faces could not help but darken. They had known Ren Ziheng for quite some time. As their senior, Ren Ziheng had always taken care of them. No matter what happened in Penglai Palace, Ren Ziheng would definitely inform them as long as he heard the news. For such a long time, Ren Ziheng had never held back from them. It was precisely because of this that they also treated Ren Ziheng as a good brother. However, when they saw Ren Ziheng like this, they also felt uncomfortable in their hearts. Their eyes gradually turned red as if something was going to fall at any time. When they looked at Qian Feilong again, their eyes were burning with raging flames of anger. This damn guy. Noticing everyone's expressions, Qian Feilong's gaze changed a little. Originally, he only treated Ren Ziheng and the others as playthings and wanted to see them in incomparable pain. However, the other party suddenly had so many helpers. Although the other party's injuries were not light, once they joined forces, their combat power would not be weak. If you remember correctly, this Mo Yunjue was a Starlight Realm cultivator, and his level was not low. Under such a comparison, he suddenly realized that the overall advantage that he originally had suddenly changed. On the contrary, the other party seemed to have gained a greater advantage. Qian Feilong was not the only one who realized this situation. The two cultivators behind him also realized this and could not help but retreat a little. Xiren, Yunjue, you must kill them. Shangguan Yingying's eyes were filled with anger. Previously, after they had escaped from their predicament, they had rushed over without stopping. At first, all of them were almost certain that they had no chance of surviving. It was only later that they realized that the situation was much worse than they had imagined. After escaping from Muze's hands, they immediately found Mo Yunjue and Ao Ling Xiao. Although Mo Yunjue's cultivation was not comparable to the other parties, with the existence of the murderous aura, Mo Yunjue's ability to fight above his level was extremely powerful. This was clearly beyond the other party's expectations. Therefore, even when facing four cultivators, Mo Yunjue and Ao Ling Xiao were still not at an absolute disadvantage. With the addition of Wen Xiren and Shangguan Yingying to the battle, the situation immediately changed. Therefore, after spending a lot of effort, they successfully escaped. However, they also paid a great price. After all, the counterattack of an astral radiance cultivator was still very terrifying. Even though they were already seriously injured, everyone didn't stop for even half a moment. They immediately rushed towards the direction of Ren Ziheng's group without stopping. Unfortunately, they were originally in different directions, so even if they rushed desperately, they still spent a lot of time. When they arrived, they saw this scene. Hearing Shangwan Yingying's words, Wen Ziren, Imo Yunjiwe, and the others all nodded. Even though their combat strength had weakened, they were still confident in dealing with Qian Feilong's group of 3. In the next instant, Imo Yunjiwe and the others took a step forward and charged towards Qian Feilong's group without hesitation. They were going to make those 3 bastards pay the price. Senior brother Qian, the situation doesn't look good. What should we do? Chapter 41:27. The 2 cultivators from the Crimson Moon sect immediately thought of retreating. Faced with such a great disparity in their powers, if they were to fight recklessly and lose their lives here, it would not be worth it at all. Furthermore, they had only wanted to kill Ren Ziheng and the others out of respect for Li Boyo. It had nothing to do with them at all. If they were to lose their lives because of this, it would not be worth it at all. When Qian Feilong saw Mo Yunjiwe and the others charging towards them, he shouted, "Let's go quickly!" Qian Feilong immediately turned around and ran towards the back without any hesitation. At this moment, his heart was filled with confusion. He could not understand why these fellows would appear here together. Could it be that they had dealt with the other pursuers as well? If that was really the case, it would be too terrifying. Could it be that these fellows' powers have reached such a terrifying level? Mo Yunjiwe and the others quickly gave chase. However, they were already injured. On the other hand, Qian Feilong and the others were in peak condition. Hence, they could not catch up to them at all. After giving chase for some distance, Mo Yunjiwe and the others chose to give up and return to Ren Zimei's side. Ren Zimei hugged Ren Ziheng and was sobbing her eyes out. Ren Ziheng held Ren Zimei's hand and said, "Zimei, don't be sad. You must live on. I will watch over you from above with mother and father." Hearing this, Ren Zimei shook her head vehemently. "No, big brother, don't leave me alone." Just then, Chu Jinfeng spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was as white as a sheet. When she saw Chu Jinfeng's state, Ren Zimei could not help but look at him and ask, "Jinfeng, how are you?" Chu Jinfeng shook his head. "Zimei, don't be sad. Everyone will die sooner or later. We will wait for you in the underworld. You will meet someone who will treat you even better." As he spoke, a dim light flashed across Chu Jinfeng's eyes. He had once hoped that it would be him. He never thought that he would not be able to do so in the end. When he thought of leaving Ren Zimei alone in this world, he could not help but feel his heart ache. No, no. Ren Zimei finally couldn't control herself and burst into tears. "I don't want to live alone in this world. I don't want—" The 2 most important people to her in this world were Ren Ziheng and Chu Jinfeng. However, today, the 2 most important people in her life were going to leave her together. How could she accept this? Shangwan Yingying hurried to Ren Zimei's side. At this moment, she felt as if Ren Zimei had fallen into darkness, and no light could save her. "Zimei, be strong," Shangwan Yingying said with concern. Ren Zimei shook her head. No matter how strong she usually pretended to be, in the face of this scene, how could she be strong? As long as Ren Ziheng could survive, she would rather not learn to be strong for the rest of her life. Seeing that Ren Zimei was completely immersed in grief, Shangwan Yingying's eyes were slightly red. She immediately took out a bottle of pills from her chinquan bag and fed it to Ren Ziheng without hesitation. "This was given to me by Hong Zhuang. She said it's a life-saving pill. Now that Hong Zhuang isn't here, I can only try using this pill." Chapter 41:28. Ren Zimei had been completely immersed in grief and did not hear anything that Shangguan Yingying had said. However, when she saw Shangguan Yingying's actions, her eyes lit up a little, and a hint of hope appeared in her eyes. Junior sister Shangguan, is this pill effective? Actually, I'm not too sure. Shangguan Yingying's expression showed some hesitation. This was given to me by Hong Zhuang. She said it was for emergencies and to prevent us from being separated. However, I'm very confident in Hong Zhuang's pill refining skills. She's a high-level pill refiner and has mastered many incredible pill recipes. Since it was given by her, it must be a treasure. I hope it'll be effective. As she spoke, Shangguan Yingying's gaze fell upon Ren Ziheng and Chu Jinfeng. She could only hope that this pill would be effective. However, since Bailey Hongzhuang had given them this pill, they had not used it, so she could not be sure of the pill's specific effects. Ren Zimei nodded repeatedly. She seemed to be grasping at a life-saving straw. Her eyes were fixed on Ren Ziheng and Chu Jinfeng as she prayed in her heart. Now, she could only hope for a miracle. She hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang's pill would really be effective. If Ren Ziheng and Chu Jinfeng could survive, she was willing to give her life to Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying. After Ren Ziheng and Chu Jinfeng had taken the pill, they felt a warm energy spread throughout their bodies. This energy was very gentle and nourished their bodies. Their bodies, which had been gradually losing their vitality, slowly recovered under the effects of this pill. The two of them could not help but feel astonished. Shangguan Yingying and Ren Zimei had been watching over Ren Ziheng and Chu Jinfeng until Mo Yunjue and the others returned. Shangguan Yingying then stood up and asked, "How was it?" Xiren shook his head. They ran away. "That damned Qian Feilong. Don't let me find a chance, or I'll kill him." Ren Zimei's eyes were fierce and persistent. "I'll kill Qian Feilong with my own hands. Cut him into 1,000 pieces and tear him to pieces." How are senior brother Ren and the others? After when Xiren sized up Ren Ziheng and Shangguan Yingying, he then looked at Shangguan Yingying. Judging from the situation, although Qian Feilong had left them on the verge of death, they did not die immediately. Maybe there was still a glimmer of hope. Shangguan Yingying spread out her hands and said, "I fed them the life-saving pills that Hong Zhuang gave us, but I can't tell how effective they are." Hearing this, when Xiren nodded slightly and said, "Senior Ren, Hong Zhuang's medicine has always been very effective. Don't be too sad. Maybe there's still a chance." Ren Zimei nodded, but she was still somewhat absent-minded. Her hands were tightly clenched together. She was obviously nervous to the extreme. Just as they were conversing, Mo Yunjue suddenly groaned, and his face became abnormally ugly. Noticing the change in Mo Yunjue, Xiren's expression changed. He quickly helped Mo Yunjue to sit down and asked, "Yunjue, what's wrong?" Mo Yunjue waved his hand and took out a pill and swallowed it, saying, "I'm fine." Chapter 41:29. It's just that at that time, junior apprentice brother Mo forcefully endured all of this and didn't say anything. Ao Lingxiao's face was filled with guilt. Previously, he did not have a good impression of Mo Yunjue. He only felt that this fellow was too cold and unapproachable. However, he did not expect that Mo Yunjue would be injured in order to save him. It was only at that moment that he realized that Mo Yunjue was actually a person who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Hearing Ao Lingxiao's words, Xiren and Shangguan Yingying finally came to their senses. They did not notice that Mo Yunjue's injuries were so serious. Seeing that everyone was looking at him with concern, Mo Yunjue waved his hand and said, "It's a good thing that Qian Feilong did not see through it. Otherwise, if we really fought, the situation would be terrible." In fact, he was already at the end of his rope. He was only forcefully suppressing the situation in his body. He was originally certain that Qian Feilong would choose to leave after seeing them in such a state. If Qian Feilong did not do so and instead fought them head-on, they would be finished. "Yunjue, so you've been forcefully holding on all this time." Shangguan Yingying's eyes flickered with a complicated light. I'm really too stupid. I actually did not see through all this time and even let you chase Qian Feilong for so long. I deliberately did not tell you. That was the only way to fool Qian Feilong. Mo Yunjue's expression was heavy. Although Qian Feilong is left, we are not safe now. In my opinion, we should leave as soon as possible or find a place to hide. Otherwise, once their people gather and find trouble with us, none of us will be able to escape. He knew very well that the two Starlight cultivators from before were not simple. As a cultivator from such a sect, almost none of them were simple. Although he had defeated them, he had also paid a huge price. However, he did not like to show his weak side in front of everyone. If he did not find a place to rest properly, he was afraid that he would not be able to hold on any longer. Hearing Mo Yunjue's words, everyone came to their senses. Xiren and Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but look at each other. They couldn't help but think that once Qian Feilong returned and communicated with Mu Zhe and the others, the matter of Mu Zhe letting them go would probably be exposed. At that time, once they came together, the situation would be extremely terrible. Carry Senior Brother Ren and Senior Brother Chu. Let's leave quickly, Xiren hurriedly said. What about Beichun and Hong Zhuang? Will they be in danger? Shangguan Yingying's eyes were filled with worry. Although the people from the Crimson Moon sect were chasing after them, she also understood that the people Li Boyo wanted to kill the most were Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing this, Mo Yunjue could not help but frown. Under such circumstances, Hong Zhuang is in great danger. No one knew when exactly Hong Zhuang would come out. It would be fine if she stayed in there for a long time. However, if she stayed in there for a short time, wouldn't she run into Li Boyo and the others as soon as she came out? If she really fell into such a situation, it would be impossible for her to keep her life. Everyone looked at each other, looking unusually troubled. Chapter 41:30. When Xiren's eyes flashed with a thoughtful light. Their team was now either injured or crippled. They could not be of any help at all. Moreover, there was no shelter in this training ground. Once the other party caught up to them, they would not be able to find a place to hide. A.O. Lingxiao nodded. Indeed, with our current state, we really can't be of any help. Everyone sighed. If they went back now, they would not be of any use other than sending themselves to their deaths. They might even drag down Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang. Rather than that, they might as well go back and heal their injuries first. It would be best if they could get the cultivators from Penglai Palace to come and help. That would be the best solution. If it were any other day, it would be a little troublesome to get the cultivators from Penglai Palace to come and help. However, this time, it had escalated to the level of trouble between Penglai Palace and the Crimson Moon sect. They believed that the cultivators from Penglai Palace would definitely do their best to help. Mo Yunjue frowned. He could not bear the thought that Bailey Hongzhuang might be in danger. However, looking at his trembling hands, he really did not have any strength left. Yunjue, don't worry. Hongzhuang has the ability to protect herself. Trust me, I won't lie to you. Xiren stared at Mo Yunjue. He understood how important Bailey Hongzhuang was to Mo Yunjue. If he could not guarantee Bailey Hongzhuang's safety, Mo Yunjue would not be able to leave with peace of mind. The reason why he was not too worried was because he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had the Chaos Ring. If she was being hunted down, as long as there was a chance, Bailey Hongzhuang could escape into the Chaos Ring. As a result, it would be impossible for Li Boyo and the others to find her. Mo Yunjue was originally unwilling to leave, but after seeing how confident Wen Xiren was, he nodded hesitantly. Based on his understanding of Wen Xiren, the latter had always been very concerned about Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun. Since he was so sure, he must have his reasons. Although he didn't know what it was, he believed that it couldn't be wrong. After making the decision, everyone rushed in the direction of Penglai Palace. They had to hurry. When Qian Feilong and the other two saw that Mo Yunjue and the rest did not chase after them, they finally relaxed. Immediately, they heaved a deep sigh of relief. I didn't expect these guys to still be alive. What's going on? Qian Feilong's face was filled with confusion. He just couldn't understand. In my opinion, something must have happened. We should hurry back and take a look. Hearing this, Qian Feilong nodded. Now, they had to hurry back to understand the ins and outs of this matter. After seeing that everyone had gone after Rinziheng and the others, Li Boyo had been waiting outside the ruins for them to return. In fact, he didn't dare to stay in the ruins because he didn't know where Bailey Hongzhuang was. If Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly appeared, he, who had his Dantian destroyed, was no match for her. Although he was now a cripple, he still didn't want to die like this. At least, it was good to be alive. While waiting, he finally saw Mu Zhe and the other two slowly walking back. A trace of joy immediately appeared on his face. Mu Zhe, you're back. How was it? Chapter 41:31. After hearing Mu Zhe's answer, Li Boyo's face suddenly revealed a joyful smile. Although they had not found Bailey Hongzhuang's whereabouts yet, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang knew that everyone else was dead, it would definitely be a great blow to her. Even if they could not find Bailey Hongzhuang, it would be good to make Bailey Hongzhuang feel extreme pain. The most depressing thing was that he could not kill either Bailey Hongzhuang or Bewitching. As long as one of them died, the other would definitely be in so much pain that he would rather die, just like how he was now a cripple. This was the situation he wanted to see the most. Mu Zhe, thank you, Li Boyo said gratefully. Facing Li Boyo's grateful gaze, Mu Zhe did not feel guilty at all. In this situation, he was still willing to deceive Li Boyo. This was already very polite to him. Eldest senior brother, are we the only ones who came back? The other teammates didn't come back? Mu Zhe looked around, and after discovering that there were no other cultivators besides them, he could not help but frown. Li Boyo nodded slightly. I've been waiting here for you to come back. Other than you, the others did not come back. Then their speed is really slow. Another person said with a smile, feeling a little guilty in his heart. They did not attack Xiren and Bewitching at all. It was because of this that they were the fastest. Eldest senior brother, you've been here for so long. Did you see Bailey Hongzhuang? No. Li Boyo frowned. There was no movement at all. I really don't understand where Bailey Hongzhuang went. By the way, when you were fighting with Xiren and Bewitching, did you ask about Bailey Hongzhuang's whereabouts? Hearing Li Boyo's question, the other two cultivators couldn't help but look at Mu Zhe. Previously, they were only thinking about how to obtain more benefits from Xiren and Wenxinya. They had long forgotten about Bailey Hongzhuang's whereabouts, so why would they even think of asking? Mu Zhe, on the other hand, was very calm. I asked them, but they were very tight-lipped. No matter how I asked, they refused to tell me. In the end, I could only kill them. So that's how it is. Li Boyo did not suspect anything. I didn't expect these guys to be so loyal. Let's wait for the others to come back and ask them if they have found the whereabouts of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. All right. After waiting for a while, Qian Feilong and the others slowly appeared in front of Li Boyo and the others. When they noticed that Qian Feilong and the others had returned, one of the cultivator's legs was injured and had to be carried back directly. As for the other cultivator, he was nowhere to be seen. Everyone could not help but reveal a trace of shock on their faces. Junior brother Qian, what happened to you? Li Boyo could not hide the shock on his face. According to his judgment, Rinziheng and the others were not very strong. Qian Feilong and the others should have no problem chasing after them. How could someone be injured now? We were tricked. Qian Feilong sighed, his face full of bad luck. I didn't expect those three guys to have a trump card. They caught us off guard. Junior brother Li has fallen. How could this be? Chapter 41:32. For a moment, Li Boyo felt a little guilty. After all, Qian Feilong only helped because of their past relationship. Junior brother Li actually lost his life because of this. How could he not feel guilty? These guys don't seem to have much ability, but they can't be underestimated. If we're not careful, we'll fail miserably. Qian Feilong sighed and shook his head. Recalling the previous scenes, he still felt that it was a loss. It was originally a problem that could be solved completely, but kept on causing trouble. Now, not only were they unable to solve these problems, they even had to run back. It was really embarrassing. Senior brother Qian, did you kill them all? Mu Zhe asked. Qian Feilong shook his head. Ren Ziheng and Chu Jinfeng should have been killed by me, but Ren Zimei is still alive. Why? Li Boyo's face was full of confusion. Obviously, he couldn't understand why Qian Feilong would choose to leave one person behind in such a situation. Wasn't this leaving trouble? Their helpers are here. Penglai Palace's people are here. Wan Yinling and the others? Li Boyo quickly asked. If Wan Yinling and the others were here, then this matter would be a little troublesome. No. Qian Feilong's gaze then turned to Mu Zhe. Speaking of which, I don't understand. Mu Zhe, didn't you chase after Wen Xiren and Chu Jinfeng? Why didn't you succeed? Instead, you gave them a chance to rescue Ren Ziheng and the others? Following Qian Feilong's words, Mu Zhe was stunned. Li Boyo was also stunned. What did you say? Li Boyo said in a daze. You said that Wen Xiren and Chu Jinfeng are still alive. Qian Feilong nodded. Not only are they still alive, Imo Yunjue and Chu Jinfeng are also still alive. I thought that they wouldn't appear. Who would have thought that they would appear together to save Ren Ziheng and the others? The other side had more people, so we came back and only killed Ren Ziheng and Chu Jinfeng. Ren Zimei didn't have time to do anything. Li Boyo's gaze couldn't help but turn to Mu Zhe. The gratitude in his eyes suddenly changed a little, and his expression became very complicated. Mu Zhe, didn't you say that Wan and Xiren had already died in your hands? What? Qian Feilong was surprised as he looked at Mu Zhe in astonishment, obviously not having expected such a situation. Instantly, Mu Zhe and the two cultivators behind him fell into silence. They did not expect that Xiren and Wen Liang would actually run over to help others after leaving. This was truly beyond their expectations. According to their thinking, it was already not easy for Wen Xiren and his companion to escape with their lives in such a situation. Why would they run to their deaths? However, these two people just didn't play by the rules, so their situation was discovered by others. It was really depressing. However, in the current situation, with Qian Feilong confronting them, no matter how they tried to cover up their lies, it would be impossible for them to succeed. Thus, they decided to remain silent. When Li Boyo saw Mu Zhe and the others fall into silence, he already understood. There was no need to explain because it was already very obvious. They were the ones who had let Wen Xiren escape. Chapter 41:33. Qian Feilong frowned and looked at Mu Zhe in confusion. Why would you do that? Mu Zhe remained silent. Now that the matter had been completely exposed, there was no way to explain, so he was too lazy to explain. Looking at Mu Zhe's appearance, Qian Feilong could not help but sigh. According to this explanation, only 2 of Ren Ziheng's group of 7 died, and the rest were completely let go. I know that with my current appearance, I'm no longer of any use. Li Boyo could not help but feel disappointed. He had already expected this to happen in the future, but he did not expect that the person he had always treated as a brother would not even care about this little bit of friendship. Seeing this, Mu Zhe's expression became complicated. Eldest senior brother, I've really let you down in this matter. You wanted to kill Bailey Hongzhuang, so I'll accompany you in this ruin to find Bailey Hongzhuang. What do you think? Originally, he still hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang could return alive, because only then would he be able to obtain enough spirit stones. However, Xiren and Shangwan Yingying obviously did not abide by their agreement, so he did not intend to continue to abide by it. It would be fine if he was not discovered, but now that he was, he naturally still wanted to save face. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to get along with Qian Feilong and the rest in the future. Mu Zhe, I won't force you. Li Boyo waved his hand, looking completely disheartened. I'm not forcing you. I'm willing to do this, Mu Zhe said solemnly. Qian Feilong looked at Mu Zhe and understood that Mu Zhe was sincere. He immediately said, This time, you can't cause any trouble. Eldest senior brother has helped us a lot. This is his last wish. We can't let him down. Hearing this, Muze nodded. Okay, there are a few other guys. When they come back, I'll have to talk to them. Qian Feilong said helplessly. Li Boyo and the rest immediately waited outside the ruin. However, they waited for a long time and did not wait for the few cultivators to return. They could not help but look at each other, and a bad feeling arose in their minds. They haven't returned after such a long time. Could something have happened to them? Qian Feilong asked doubtfully. Muze frowned. With their cultivation, logically speaking, there shouldn't be any danger. Let's go take a look. It's strange that nothing has happened for so long, Li Boyo could not help but say. Even if they let Mo Yunjue and Ao Lingxiao go, it was impossible for them not to come back. At the very least, they would make up a lie like Muze. As long as no one exposed it, no one would know. In the next moment, Li Boyo and the others immediately set off to search. Bailey Hongzhuang was still studying this restriction. According to her understanding, this restriction required a powerful cultivation to break it. With her current cultivation, she was clearly not qualified, so there was no point in using force. Only by outsmarting her would there be a chance. Bai Long originally did not have any hope for Bailey Hongzhuang, but after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's perseverance in her research, his expression could not help but change a little. Hey, human, you've been studying for so long. Have you made any progress? Chapter 41:34. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the white dragon could not help but sigh. I saw that you've been concentrating on your research for so long, and I thought that you would have discovered something. It seems that my judgment was right. You can't do it. Even though the white dragon had denied everything, Bailey Hongzhuang did not seem to mind at all. Her delicate, jade-like face rippled with a faint, gentle smile. You're so powerful, but haven't you also been trapped here for so many years? I've only been researching for a short while. Isn't it normal that I haven't discovered anything? The white dragon could not help but be shaken. It had wanted to mock Bailey Hongzhuang, but it was suddenly unable to say anything. Indeed, it had been researching here for so many years and had not succeeded. Why did it have to criticize Bailey Hongzhuang? The three beasties watched as the white dragon was rendered speechless by Bailey Hongzhuang's words and could not help but chuckle. Master was indeed master. She usually did not speak, but when she did, she could shut the other party up. I can't be bothered with you. The white dragon pursed its lips. Then you can slowly research here. If you can really break this seal, I'll acknowledge you as my master. Why do I remember you saying that whoever can take you away would be your master? If I can take you away, I'm already your master. Why would I need you to acknowledge me as your master? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a sly light. She had also discovered that although this white dragon had a tough appearance, it was actually very naive and easy to coax. She could tell that from a few words it had exchanged. The white dragon was dumbfounded, and its brain could not wrap itself around the situation. It had clearly felt that what it had said was quite reasonable, but why did it feel that it was in the wrong after hearing what Bailey Hongzhuang had said? Sigh. White dragon, my master is right. What you've said is nothing. Xiaohei quickly spoke up. All right. The white dragon, who had transformed into a woman, puffed up her cheeks and said gloomily, if you can break this seal, I'll acknowledge you as the #1, most powerful, most intelligent, and most capable master in the world. Is this okay? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a sly smile. It's a deal. It's a deal. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang began to concentrate on studying the restriction. Seeing this, Xiaobai couldn't help but jump to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and ask curiously, Master, do you have an idea? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Actually, this restriction is a spirit array set up by an expert. As long as you can break this spirit array, you can break this restriction. However, this restriction is very powerful, and the spirit array is not simple either. Breaking it is not an easy task. I believe Master can do it. Xiao Bai's eyes shone with a determined light. In its eyes, its master was the most powerful existence. You have that much confidence in me. Bailey Hongzhuang stroked Xiao Bai's head. She had to admit that these two little fur balls felt extraordinarily good to touch. Of course, when Li Boyo and the others saw the corpses on the ground, their faces instantly turned extremely ugly. How could this be? Li Boyo stared blankly at the 4 corpses on the ground. 2 of them were Starlight Realm experts. He never thought that they would die here. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.